We'll get it set up for you, okay?
All right, doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Nora Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome you who are here in this church building and you who are watching us live at home, and those who will watch the video on YouTube later. We're glad you're here. Are there any announcements this morning? I will remind us, as Joy did a couple weeks ago, that we need to leave promptly without congregating close to one another, especially with the way number counts are going in our state and in our county. I don't think that I have pointed out that the music that we've been using, since we aren't able to sing and since our primary pianists aren't able to come to church, do have permissions for all of these pieces of music. The UUA either has secured the permissions or the artists themselves have given permission, or we're paying a small amount of money to some of the artists. We haven't had a story for a while because all of the moving pieces have been a bit overwhelming, but I thought it was time, so we will have a story again today. Come in from the crisp morning air outside. Come in wearing the autumn sunlight on your face. Come carrying the turning of the seasons in your heart. Whatever and however the greatness of life is speaking to you now, you are welcome here in our circle of friendship, family, and faith. A full moon rises behind the silhouette of trees. As we kindle this, the flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision. Their courage lives on in our commitments. And their love continues to bless the world through us. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's time now for our story, and I will not invite you forward to see the pictures. Our story this morning, The Scarecrow's Dance by Jane Yolen, art by Badram Abatuhin. An autumn eve, the moon was high, as yellow as a black cat's eye. Out in the field, stiff and forlorn, the scarecrow stood and watched the corn. Nighttime came, the long bell tolled, as down the rows a wild wind rolled. The wind blew high, the wind blew low, it blew the clothes of the old scarecrow. His feet of straw began to prance, his knees of straw to bend and dance. His arms of straw were flung about, his mouth began a windy shout. He shrugged his shoulders and a grin, just like a cornrow and as thin, broke out along his painted face. He gave a leap, he left his place. He jogged a row and trotted back along the cornfield's dirt-piled track, while high above his painted head, the crazed and cawing black crows fled. He danced past tractor in the field, still waiting to bring in the yield, past cows who lay down in the grass and watched him as he silent passed. He danced by barn as red as blood, and two pigs sleeping in the mud. He pirouetted on the lane, and then into the yard he came. Ahead he saw a yellow light, the family tucking into night. He pressed his nose against the glass, his straw feet into crinkled grass, and watched a child on bended knee begin a prayer by saying, please. Please bless our pigs and bless our barn and keep our chickens safe from harm. Bless our cats and bless our cows, bless our tractors and our plows. And bless tonight our old scarecrow who guards the faithful, who guards the fields and each row. So that tomorrow when we reap, there will be lots of corn to keep. The scarecrow heard the painted ears and wept a pail of painted tears. Then turning danced back to his field, and right before the pole he kneeled. What prayers do scarecrows make to God, of sky and rain and wind and sod? Or do they touch on love or beauty? Do they sing of faith and duty? We'll never know except that he, a scarecrow singularity, with one great leap, high, high and higher than any dancer could admire, slid back onto his wooden pole, which straight and tall just fit his soul. For anyone can dance, thought he, but only I can keep fields free. Joy and woe are woven fine, wrote William Blake. And when this we rightly know, safely through the world we go. Because we daily live the truth in the poet's words, because this time, each time we gather to worship, to speak aloud our joys and our sorrows. If you have one, if you'd like to raise your hand and tell us, then I'll light the candle.
I'd like to have a candle lit for my youngest granddaughter, Lola Kepley, who on Friday, turn 9. And then I want to light a candle for Troy, who tomorrow will embark on a new job. He's been looking for a long time and finally came to a good ending. And he'll be working for the Arctic Wolf Internet Securities. So he starts tomorrow.
So a candle of joy for grandchildren in general, and is it Zola or Lola?
Lola.
Lola, who turned 9, and we'll light Troy's candle again for his successful job search. I'm going to light 2 candles here for Mimi. Mimi is back in the hospital. She is at St. James Hospital this time with pneumonia and COPD and congestive heart failure. She watches our videos and is very disappointed when we don't light a candle for her. So this is a candle of our love and our concern for her, and it's also a candle of joy that Mimi and so many others are so deeply connected to our congregation. It matters that we remember one another. Light a candle for democracy. A candle for those who are in the path of Zeta. Natural disasters, wildfires, these have fallen off our headlines, but they are still devastating lives. And I light a final candle for all that remains unspoken. Let us hold all of our joys and sorrows in our hearts as we enter a moment of meditation. Now let us pause, still our bodies, quiet our minds for just this moment and a few moments more. Is it the calm before the storm? Is it the eye of the hurricane? The hush that falls when all the small creatures sense a predator is near? The gathering of breath for the next barrage of argument and counter-argument and shouting down the noise? Can we let it be peace instead? Right now, in this moment of history, this moment of our lives, peace, profound, abundant, robust peace. The peace that passes all understanding, the peace of resting in a higher power, the peace of being here where we belong. For wherever we are, we belong in a way that respects no bounds of geography or membership. The peace of love's embrace, the peace of inhabiting our being with joy, with gratitude, with tranquility and courage, with forgiveness and without apology. Now we pause, still our bodies, quiet our minds this moment and a few moments more, we settle into peace. We are at peace. We become peace. Just for this moment and a few moments more. Amen. Those of you who were able to hear might think that was my favorite Christmas hymn, Out of Season. It was in fact another hymn from our hymnal, All My Memories of Love, which is set to the same tune. And it was sung and played by Jess Hutterman, who's the director of music at the Bell Street Chapel, Unitarian Universalist Church in Providence, Rhode Island. Our next song we'll hear, all right. Our first reading today comes from Unitarian Universalist minister Molly Housh Gordon. Molly serves the congregation in Columbia, Missouri. She wrote this week, "As the darkness settles in, the tradition of my ancestors, if you go back far enough, says that the veil grows thin between the world of the dead and us. I don't actually believe in a world of the dead, but the dead don't care much what I believe, and when I squint my eyes just so, I see them laughing gently at my confident incredulity. Outside my window, the spectacularly overgrown garden, which was over the summer months a source of shame, has now turned feeding ground to hosts of birds. Yesterday, a cardinal was there holding court, and though she is a greater skeptic than I, my mother swears that cardinals bring greetings from my grandmother, dead this last year and a half. The cardinal sits in the tall grass watching the other birds feast, as if to tell me that even my deepest, wildest failures will eventually bear fruit, or at least nourish some other life. This is ironic because my grandmother pinned a lot on my achievement in life. She swore she only beat breast cancer to see me graduated from Harvard. As the darkness settles in, I can ease my gaze and see just the nourishing message, softened by the veil, the blurry line between failure and success, life and death, the hope in my unknowing. And our second reading, Days of Memory, by Searl, who was a Unitarian Universalist minister, served for many years in Hinsdale, Illinois, and was a colleague and friend. These are days of memory. It has always been so for our kind after the leaves have fallen. The nights are long, and in the darkness we remember. These are days of reflection. The long horizontal rays of the afternoon sun spill across the earth with the golden light of memory. A chilly breeze at twilight stirs the ground cover of leaves, stirring also our thoughts. The elusive beauty of red sunsets we would hold if only we could. But the darkness seeps from below the horizon. Day turns into dusk, into night. So we remember. In our minds, in the golden light of memory, we affirm the eternal beauty of the lives of those who have died and the goodness of the days that were. These are days of memory, of reflection, of affirmation. It has always been so for our kind after the leaves have fallen. Here are the readings. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, also in our hymnal, was written by Unitarian minister Norbert Chapek, who was the minister in Prague, who was the originator of our flower ceremony. It was translated into English by Paul and Anita. Monk, yes, but it also says English version by Richard Doege. So, it was translated by lots of people and performed by Dave Rowe. My Uncle Dick has researched and assembled 2 fat, heavy binders of genealogical information. One for both sides of my mom's family, the Greggs and the Desarts. I haven't done much more than glance at the volumes, to be honest. Yet I know his research was meticulous, thorough, and not limited to computer searches, because that's the kind of guy he is, and because he and my aunt and my cousin picked me up in South Bend one time and took me along on a day trip to a town in Michigan where he was tracking down leads. Distant relatives have done similar, though less extensive, genealogy work on the day side of my family. I'm not aware of any work on the Ambler branch, my paternal grandmother. And I don't know any family member who has done the 23andMe thing, but frankly, I don't pay much attention to these things, so I could be missing something. My dad had a family middle name, as does my brother. My sister and her husband gave their children family middle names. So did my brother and his former wife give their kids family middle names. My mom has a family middle name. Louis' birth parents gave them a family first name. I don't have a family name other than my last name, and I didn't have the opportunity to pass a family name on to a child. Perhaps that's why, though I appreciate the bits of especially unusual or relevant family data that come my way, on the whole, I haven't caught the genealogy bug. Which isn't to say I don't think ancestors matter. Rather, I believe ancestry may be traced along many paths, not all of them genetic or even familial. Back in school, I don't remember middle school or junior high or elementary school, I created a family tree of occupations. In just the 3 generations of my grandparents, parents, siblings, and cousins, my maternal side leans toward educators, and my paternal side leans toward nurses, with a few social workers, computer geeks, doctors, farmers, business owners thrown in. Some relatives held 2 or 3 of these occupations over the course of their lifetimes. And there's also one nurse on the maternal side and a couple educators on the paternal side. But nary a clergy person among them, unless we go back several more generations to a defrocked priest, and his place on the tree is a bit hazy. Nevertheless, I claim a clergy lineage, and a weaver's lineage, and a library lineage, among others. My clergy lineage includes the late Roy Phillips, who was minister of my childhood church, Laurel Holman, who ran the Sunday school when I was growing up there, and who later served as my internship supervisor, the late Norma Veridan, who was the minister of religious education at my internship church, the late Father Jim Howie, Episcopal priest and family friend who knew me from before I was born, Nancy Hagee, no less a minister for not seeking ordination, who succeeded Laurel as the director of religious education at my childhood church. Linda Campbell supervised both my clinical pastoral education internship and residency. Ken Sawyer and Jane Jepka, who taught me to preach. Tom Leutner, who supervised my first field placement during my first year of divinity school, and the late Dorothy Emerson, who supervised my field placement during my final year of divinity school. My theological, as opposed to clergy, lineage includes most of those I just named, and also the late Tim Polk and the late Robert Willis, professors at Hamlin University, and Stacy Offner, an instructor at Hamlin, along with professors at both Yale and Harvard Divinity Schools. These men and women taught me to think and reflect theologically. Unitarian and Universalist thinkers and writers and preachers through the ages are also my theological ancestors, the ones who taught me the dignity of humankind and the expansive love of God, the riches of the world's wisdom sources, and the possibility of salvation in this life. My Weaver lineage traces to Betty Johannesson, who taught me, and Sue Cinnamon, who gave me her loom. My writing lineage includes my mom, because she read to us and took us to the library, and being read to and reading are writing prerequisites. And Peggy Burris, who required all her 8th grade English students to keep journals, and Carol Bly, an instructor at Hamlin University, and the people who wrote the essays on the last page of Time magazine each week in the 1980s. Joyce Bliss of Nelson Elementary School, and Luann Smith and Jackie Harlow of the Mississippi branch of the Anoka County Library comprise my library lineage. It goes on. You each have your own several lineages, your genetic family tree, the family tree you grafted yourself or kids onto through adoption, grafted your partners and spouses and in-laws onto through marriage or otherwise mutual choosing, your professional, vocational, educational mentors and role models and teachers, the people who schooled you in your crafts and hobbies and volunteer activities. Take a moment to say their names in your hearts or aloud, but not too loud. See their faces, remember their ways. All these are segments of your ancestral line, and the lines don't stop with them. Your lineage extends back to the people who taught your teachers, the ones your mentors apprenticed under. And you yourself are in the lineage not just of your children and grandchildren, but also those you've taught, mentored, and companioned on the way. The first answer to the question, where are the ancestors then, is they are in sprawling, separate, intertwining lines reaching back, as they say, into the mists of time. One line for each identified and unidentified source of influence and shaping and building and giving that makes you, you, and me, me. You'll note that in addition to expanding my working definition of ancestor beyond family, I'm also playing fast and loose with the traditional understanding that ancestor denotes someone more than 2 generations back on a family tree, and typically no longer living. It's okay. I can do that because this is my sermon. Another answer, as Molly Gordon notes in her lovely poem, is that the ancestors, according to Christian tradition, are on the other side of a veil that exists between the living and the dead. The veil is said to be particularly thin in autumn, allowing the living to sense more easily the spirit presence of those beloved who have died. The Christian Church celebrates all those who have gone before on November 1st, today, All Saints' Day, and November 2nd, All Souls' Day. So for now, though on the other side of the veil, the ancestors are very close at hand. Their voices in the wind, perhaps. Their familiar odor in the scent of wood smoke or charred pumpkin. Their spirit in a cardinal or a raven. Where are the ancestors? A third answer, perhaps the most important answer, is they are even nearer than the other side of the thin autumnal veil. Wherever else they may be, my ancestors are in my head and in my soul, now and all saints and all souls and always. Betty is with me in my loom room when something goes wrong, saying, as she always said in our studio, "We can fix that." Carol is with me at the keyboard saying, "Good English is hard work." Roy, too, is with me as I put together services with a call to excellence and often just the right poem. Laurel reminds me I'm tenacious. Father Howie urges me to accept free meals where I can get them and to take care that ministry doesn't swallow Lisa. When I step into the pulpit, I see the smiley face and words of encouragement Tom scrawled on the manuscript of one of my first ever sermons. In a crossing of those lines, Tim quotes a poem Roy taught me, charging me to remember when I tire on a long thrash to my island, when fear cramps my heart, that all these ancestors and all the unknown ones too are the sea that will hold me if only I lie back and let them. And all of them, Jackie and Luann, Nancy and Dorothy, Bob and Stacy, Eleanor Gordon, John Murray and Mom and all the others, call me back when I stray. Call me back to the pole that fits my soul, the role that only I in all the world can fill. As an adoptive parent, I've learned that family tree projects, such as the one I mentioned a few minutes ago, are cruel. Unintentionally so, but cruel nonetheless. Surely in every classroom where such a thing is ever assigned, there is at least one student, adopted or not, whose family tree has broken branches, great gaps of unknowing. Or there are two trees, the bio one that may or may not be known, and the adoptive one, which, depending on many factors, may or may not feel real to the student who holds a place on both trees. So please, any teacher or student who hears or reads these words, no more family tree assignments, at least not without a lot of forethought and plans for adaptation and alternative options that you conceive and create without making the parents do that work. But plotting out, either on paper or computer monitor or in our heads, an ancestral lineage such as I've done this morning can be healing, empowering, and revelatory. Annually, perhaps, at these days of memory, of reflection, of affirmation after the leaves have fallen, or on another significant to you date of the year, or once a decade. It can be a private endeavor or a family activity. Find a time and a space for reflection. Invite your spouse and children and grandchildren to begin to identify their several ancestral lines, naming the people who stamped their lives bare. Compare your lineage to the one from years gone by. Where have lines crossed? Have any faded out or dropped off? What new lines do you see now that were hidden at earlier stages of your life? If you and your loved ones choose to reveal to one another the results of this exercise, you'll come to know one another in deeper and surprising and significant ways. If you do the exercise alone or side by side without sharing, you'll come to know yourself in deeper and surprising and significant ways. You might choose to conclude the process with a prayer of gratitude. Where are the ancestors? They are in you. They are with you. They call you back to the pole that fits your soul. And for that, for all whose stamp you bear in ways known and unknown, I give thanks today and every day. Amen.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, to the universe, who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreams, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
You say Marie Barnwell wrote "We Are," and she also sang it along with a virtual choir from General Assembly 2020. All of the singers recorded their own video at home, and someone, Sam Plattner, did the magic that made them all sing together. your hearts the words for extinguishing our chalice. The flame has been doused, but the fire of our community still burns. In this moment, we become beacons on the prairie, bearers of light and warmth, until we gather again to rekindle our communal chalice. From ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties and things that go bump in the night, good Lord, deliver us. Unto grannies and uncles, departed siblings and friends, and things that cast love in the night, good Spirit, deliver us. Amen.